Hello, everybody. Rob here from Westmount Photography, and this is my second podcast. I did one back in November, and I'm continuing on this thing. Just wanted to mention, too, just as a side note, and I'll put the link in this post. I did a bit of a podcasty thing with my daughter, and it was quite interesting, and we got a lot of positive reviews and people really liked it. So it was kind of like a father-daughter discussion that we sort of randomly just thought we would do, and not really with any other purpose other than to sort of mimic the conversations that her and I have, which we've been having since she was a kid. We have these cool discussions in the car. You know how you often have some of the best chats when you're driving. And when it's your own kid, you tend to sort of dig deep into some topics because you want to impress them. So there's that. Anyways, so I just wanted to continue on and share some of the goings-ons in my studio. First thing I want to say is Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that jazz. It's been a strange year, that's for sure. And I just thought I'd give you a little bit of a history behind the Christmas tree. Did you know where the Christmas tree started? So it goes way back. So long before Christianity, apparently, plants and trees. I'm reading this right off of the history.com website. Plants and trees that remain green all year had a special meaning for people in the winter. So we kind of always knew that, right? It was always a winter thing. You ever see these scenes like down in Mexico or Arizona or wherever, Florida, and there's people with Christmas decorations, and you're like, that's not right. It's not right. That's cultural appropriation. But no, it's all cool. But it always, for all of us Northerners, has I think it's a more intense meaning. It's got a special meaning. Christmas has that winter aspect to it that is makes it that much more unique. So that's kind of as vague as it gets. It had a special meaning for people in the winter. All right, just a little bit more on that. So people decorate their homes, festive seasons, pine, spruce, fir trees. Ancient peoples hung evergreen boughs over their doors and windows. And in many countries, it was believed that evergreens would keep away witches, ghosts, evil spirits, and illness. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. Who knows? So anyways, having said that, let me talk about... I'm going to show my screen for you guys. Bum, bum. There we go. Screen. So you can see the 50 plus style magazine cover. I shot that cover of all the health workers back in May. It was a group shot for 50 plus lifestyle. And more recently, I did their Christmas edition at Nicole Blaise home. She's the publisher of this magazine. It's an amazing little magazine. She's an amazing lady. And she had this young family come in to do the cover. And I just want to mention this. The little boy was about 16 months old. Have you ever tried to organize a 16 or 18-month-old child? It always makes it that much more challenging. So when you're photographing kids, that, you know, I'm really good with kids. I'm going to just say it right now, but you have to use a certain strategy. And I'm going to give you a photo tip right now. Two things. One, don't ask them, don't instruct them, don't coach them, don't give them orders. You know what I mean? Like sit and look at the camera and smile. That never works. If you want to get a kid to cooperate or photograph them in a natural way, you have to sort of like create an experience. So in this case, the mom was holding a decoration from the tree, and we had the kids' attention for like 30 seconds. So their attention span is pretty short. But anyways, it worked out. It made a nice cover. And yeah, kids are a lot of fun. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. All right, just let me go to some of my images. So last couple of weeks ago, I photographed the dress rehearsal play for Alessandro, which is Yes Theater. You've heard of Yes Theater. This guy is amazing. He's been absolutely doing gangbuster stuff. Now, I've been photographing the theater images, all the rehearsal stuff and promotional materials for Sudbury Theater Center since 1998. And Alessandro started off in his career a couple of years ago, and he's been doing amazing stuff. And he contacted me, and he said he wanted me to come and photograph his play. So I did. I've been doing that for the last couple of years. So he had a play, a two-man play. Here's some of the shots. With the whole COVID thing, I mean, we had limited seating in the Sudbury Theater Center, which is where he held the play. And I hope it was well attended. I'm not sure if it was or not, but it looked like an amazing play. And one of the trickiest things about theatrical photography is the lighting. Lighting is all over the place. So, but it's something I've learned to, over the years, sort of work with and create some interesting results. So I just wanted to mention that. Also, this is not my picture, but it's my buddy Warren Noyce, Warren and Paula Noyce. They're out of North Battleford, Saskatchewan, which is near the border of Alberta. A little bit of a side story about Warren. I've known Warren for a couple decades now. He's an excellent photographer. He was in Lloydminster, which is, I believe, on the border of Alberta. And him and his wife sadly divorced, and he had two daughters. And she got they were working together in their photography studio, and she got the photography studio. And I believe one of the stipulations was he could not operate within about a 200-mile radius. So he looked at the map and he went, boop, North Battleford is where I'm going to go. He wanted to be as close as possible to his kids. And he opened up a studio there back about 10 to 12 years ago. Amazing. He's been going gangbusters. So just a little bit of a sort of a business tip. Interesting to note that where everybody said that there was no way he was going to succeed and go after the markets that he went after, he's been doing absolutely phenomenal. So you can't listen to the naysayers. And Warren certainly is an inspiration and somebody who I really look up to insofar as how he approached this adversity, if you want to call it that. He took an adversity and he turned it into an opportunity. So, but anyways, that's not my point. My point is this: I love the way he shoots, and he does a lot of dance photography. He's like massive amounts. Just one of many things that he photographs is dance. And but Tina and I were supposed to photograph Claire's School of Dance on the Montrose Mall. I'm sure many of you have heard of that place. And we were all scheduled back in June, but of course, COVID. So, but anyways, that'll hopefully come. So over the last couple of years, I've photographed a few dancers. I've had these ballerinas come in, and I like to experiment. So you know what? If you're a dancer and you have some cool experimental shots, call me. I'm looking to enhance that portfolio, that aspect of my portfolio. So, this is a different treatment right here. The one on the screen, you can see it's very artistic. It's very sort of an oil paintery thing. You know, if you just zoom in, you can see the oil texture. I added all that in Photoshop. I'm just having fun. And similarly, this is a photograph of a young lady who I photographed back in November recently. She was funny. We had a good time. Her mom and her came in for, she's a big time into figure skating. And these are some of the shots I got. So it's sort of similar to dance, as you can tell. So, and we did a close up. So anyways, nice kid, sweet as can be, smart as a whip. Here we go. Let me talk about some family photography. I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about, including, well, you know what? I'm going to forget. So if I don't do this right now, I want to talk about Jordan Chef. There he is. So you may have noticed Jordan was doing this thing here. 30 days of jumping in the water. He was going morning, afternoon, and nighttime. And every time he was going out there, he would bring somebody most times. I think right here he's got a whole group of people. Yeah, this was not that long ago. So they had to cut a hole in the ice. There we go. There's a whole group of people. There we go. Local politicians, local celebs, local businesses and whatnot. So anyways, he asked me to go a couple of weeks ago, and I gladly went. I froze, but I've been doing cold exposure therapy, Wim Hof technique. I've been doing that for a couple of years, so I was no stranger to it. But the coldest of the cold is getting into cold water, because there's nothing that zaps the heat from your body than cold water. It just is crazy. It's insane. So I just wanted to put a shout out to Jordan. There it is. Cold water for clean water. It's a cause he took up, and it's got to do with the First Nations and some of the places where they have a lack and a shortage of clean water. All righty. Good. I don't know. Are you doing goals or what? I sat down with my buddy Dan 2 weeks ago. We came into the studio on a Sunday, and we spent 3 hours. I asked him if he wanted to do an accountability thing, and he said yeah. And I just we sat down and we went. It was like 3 hours. Seems like a lot, but it's not. It goes by pretty fast. My daughter was supposed to be with me, and she ended up going out of town with her boyfriend to go see his parents down in Barrie, because there was fear of a lockdown, and so we postponed the goal setting meeting with her and I last Sunday. So we spent another, not maybe 3 hours, but an hour and a half or so. And she's deep into goals, just like I am. I really believe in goals, and some people don't. That's fine. I believe that no matter where you're at, one way or another, you are still doing goals, even if you don't believe in them, or if you don't think you believe in them, or if you don't think you use goals. Like, for example, I was talking to a buddy the other day, and he's an electrical engineer, and he's like, that's nonsense. I said, well, think about it. You at one point in time wanted to go to school to become an electrical engineer. And he goes, yeah. Well, that was a goal. Maybe you didn't write it down. Maybe you didn't strategically sit down and actively pursue it, but it was a goal. So we all do goals. Otherwise, we are inert. So it's something I've experienced in my life, and especially in the last 30 years. They're almost magical. So, and when my daughter was a little girl, small, young little girl, I started getting her onto goals when she was like 5 years old. And it's in her DNA. So there's a picture of her I shot the other day. Just wanted to show you how pretty she is, and photographed in the studio. There's no retouching on this. This is straight off the camera. And that's my little blurb on goals. So there you go. All right, let's close this one down. Where was I? I wanted to talk about this image right here. Okay, little photo tip for you as well. And actually, I got a whole pile of tips in a bit. I'm going to get into that in a minute. I'm going to spend a good portion of this podcast on some photography tips for you. But this particular family, I believe, was back in third to fourth week of September. And it was on Long Lake. Now, I had gone to the house a few days prior, because I always like to do that so I know what I'm getting into. So I was very familiar with this area. Sheer coincidence, 3 years ago, I had photographed a large family at the same house. Apparently they sold it, and this family moved in, just a coincidence. So I kind of knew the area. So that was good. So when I showed up for the actual photo shoot, which is what you can see right here, I knew kind of already in advance. I always like to plan these things regardless. So I photographed this family as you see them on the lawn. My intention was to photograph them on the lawn and then move over to the dock and then do some other shots on the dock. So I have a big flash, this big giant softbox it's called. It's battery operated, it's portable, and it's amazing. So when I photographed this family on the lawn, I had that light set up. I use it almost always. And poof, the dog freaked out. Poof, dog freaked out again. I got a few shots off and the dog was not having any of this. And now that is rare, that the pets. I've only had that happen once in my life in the studio where I had this great big giant dog. It was one of those dogs from France, the Bernese mountain dog, and two girls, two sisters were holding a dog. And a poof, I did one shot and that was it. The dog was done, just freaked right out. But thankfully at that time, that shot turned out really well and it was in focus and it was a good shot. But occasionally, rare, but it happens. So the dad said, that's fine. We're going to tie the dog up on the leash over by the house over here. So I was like, okay. And now I'm not liking this idea because I want the dog in the picture, because the dog, pets are people to me. They're family. I think they're important. So I was kind of bummed out. I mean, I wasn't angry or anything. I was just kind of bummed out. So I did a few more shots and then I'm like, okay, let's go to another location. So I go by the dock. Now this is late in the day and there's a bunch of trees behind me because it's a bit of a bay and the sun is setting behind me. And I never photograph these typically in raw sunlight during the day because it's bad lighting. So there's this time of the day, which is called the golden hour, when the sun is starting to just drop to the horizon. So there was a bit of cloud and there was a bit of a haze created by the trees behind me on the horizon. And it created this amazing light. And I recognized it right away. So you can see the light. It's beautiful. It's like as if I have a large, and look at the shadows here from his shoes. You can tell there's a little bit of a harshness to it, but it's barely noticeable. But the light as a portrait light was perfect. So I had the family sit there and I said, you got to bring the dog back in the picture. Now the little girl, she's disabled. I don't know what her situation is, but she can't focus. She's nonverbal. She's a sweet kid. And when I'm photographing these, it's an extra challenge. And you got the dog too. And I was just really happy that this is what I ended up with. And I mostly am happy with the lighting. So check it out. So I just wanted to throw that little story out there for you. And we'll talk about a few more. So we had a lot of ferries. I mentioned that in my last podcast. We went all over Ontario. We had our ice ferry day, which was kind of a lot of fun. We had a huge success on that, as well as medieval day, which has a totally different look. More popular with the dudes, the little guys. So just want to talk about that. And this is one of my favorite shots. This is John, my buddy John Butler. We were in Pembroke in September photographing in his studio. We did a ferry day event there, which is what we kind of do. When we go to Sault Ste. Marie, we go to Cavanna. When we go to London, Ontario, we don't go to a photographer's. We go to a dance school, Extreme Dance it's called. And John Butler wanted us to go do a ferry day in his neck of the woods at his studio, which we did. It was a huge success. And there's his daughter. His daughter's only 13 years old, and she looks like she's like literally 24. And I was like, I'm amazed. And then I looked at her face. I said, yeah, she's got a little girl's face. If you just look at her, but she's like tall and she's like got the body of a 24-year-old. So, but anyways, I say that because John and he's the one that talks about it more than anyone. So he's kind of open about it, but never too old, never too young for ferries. And I wanted to do a shot of him and her. So we did. We set him up with this cape thing that we have and bare feet and all. And we did a whole series of shots with her. And there's one of them. So, all right, there's, let me show you this. There's a couple from my ferry day from last year. Samantha's little girls. I love this picture. It's one of my favorite pictures. We use it all the time. And I asked Samantha way back in the day if I could use it. And she's cool with that. And we got a new backdrop and here it is. So I asked Samantha if she would bring her daughters in. And so we got this whole new backdrop. I just wanted to share that with you. So it needs to be modified because you'll notice in the background here, there's not enough. So we've reordered another one but this is the general idea. So we're going with a whole new, sort of a whole new look here with our fairy day backdrops. Okay, here's a couple tips. I'm gonna just let me show you this first. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I used to teach a lot. Back in 2006, we had a 3-day conference. There's me in the front. There's James Hodgins, who's from Sudbury. And we had about, well, this many people from all over North America, come from all over. And we used to put on 3-day conferences, and we called it the Inferno. Here's 2010. I don't know if you knew that about me. A lot of people don't. Here's our first ever digital boot camp in 2002 in Sudbury. Back then, we were just sort of exploring this whole teaching others. And that was our trial run. There I am right there. So anyways, I've created many, many programs. Look at that not DVDs, but video cassettes. That's how old this is. And I still do a lot of this. Anyways, let's go into some photo tips. So a couple months ago, Judy, there's Judy right here from Sudbury Theater Center. She's on local cable. She has a show where she's talking about community stuff and what have you. And she asked if I would be one of the guests. Well, look at this up in the top left. That's her granddaughter. Her granddaughter came in on Fairy Day. How nice. There's my daughter. So one of the tips that I talked, and it was all about how to take photography in your home. So it was basically for the everyday shooter, nothing too complicated, no big fancy cameras or anything of that nature. So here's one of the tips. I'm going to give this to you right now. You see this a lot. People put people up against windows, and you can do this outside when you have the sun behind you and everything gets black. All you got to do is spin 180. So where she is, I went and I put her where I was, and I flipped 180, and you can see the difference. Now just look at her. I mean, I shot these with my cell phone, so they're a little bit grainy, but look at the specular highlights in the eyeballs. So that's a good tip to remember, guys. If you're at home and you want to get good lighting, put the light behind you. It's flat, but it's like glamour sort of fashion lighting. You will not regret it. I got a couple more tips I'm going to give you right now, and then I'm going to stop talking. All right, here comes the good stuff. Here comes the good stuff. Just want to make sure I covered everything here. Yes, theater, dance, fairies, my daughter, lighting, family, dogs. All right, some photo tips. So last fall, my daughter Danielle and I took a day trip to Killarney. So I'm going to spend the next 5 to 10 minutes max, give you some photo tips. I bring my camera with me everywhere. So the number one tip I would say is get yourself a point and shoot. If you have a big camera, here's my point and shoot. Let me show it to you. Boom. This is not a professional camera. It's my point and shoot. And it's my travel camera. I bring, look, it's small, it's light, it's lean and mean. I put it around me. I can do so much stuff with this. And it's got a 28 to 200, 2.8 aperture fixed lens. You can't take the lens off. I absolutely love this camera. I've had this camera for 7 years, 6 years. It's worn, it's beaten. It's been around the block, but it still works. It's absolutely amazing. So, all right, that's my number one tip right there. Bring your camera with you everywhere and get yourself a point and shoot. If you have a big camera, you're less inclined to, bring it with you, unless you're totally dedicated and you know you're going to use it. I find this all the time. People buy a prosumer or a big, more expensive camera. They get a bag and a case, and it ends up sitting in the closet. They don't use it. And they want to, but they don't. Yeah, so think about that. What I love about this shot, a couple things. I love the light. Look at the way the light's hitting the tree. You got your highlight, shadow. Beautiful. Also, look at this. You've got these repeating patterns. They're strong verticals. So simple. But you've also got a trail which meanders into an S curve. Now, notice the composition. I put the bottom down to the, it didn't center. Centering is often really bad. There are exceptions to that rule, but in this particular case, I shot with a the bulk of the image is on the bottom tier. That's called quadrant. The bottom, well, tier implies thirds, rule of thirds, quadrants. Sometimes it's in 4. I'll try and explain it as I go along. So, same shot with my daughter. So we've added an element of interest into the shot. She's just walking. I said, just keep walking. I'm going to get a snapshot. I didn't really plan this. I'm just shooting on the fly. More of the same. So I didn't edit these. I'm just going through them. So I find this cool looking mushroom and I get it nice and close. One of the cool things about these cameras is they have the ability to get in really close. I mean, I'm not really well focused there, am I? All right. Bottom third. No, it's top third. This time here, the bulk of the image is 2/3 of it is on all the way up to the top third. Same idea here. Now I've gone to the bottom third. Notice the composition. The bulk of the image is the open sky. I put the tree in the foreground to the right. Just a scenic. I always find these kind of interesting. There's a tree. Daughter. All right, more mushrooms. So coming back, we found these mushrooms and I took some more close-up pictures. So this camera and most of these cameras like them will allow you to get in really, really close. You've got to hold the camera nice and still. If you have a tripod, it's better. But, if you're stable, I haven't had too much coffee that day and whatnot. So there's a centered shot right there. Okay. Now we went to the lighthouse in Killarney. This is just texture, the water. And I'm doing snapshots. Now, I want to point this out. I automatically shoot this way, with the thirds. Remember I mentioned the thirds? It's a little bit crooked, but that's okay. I can fix this in Photoshop. I can straighten out that horizon. I try my best to keep the horizon straight, but in this case, whatever. I can easily fix this. So we got the thirds, top third, 2/3 on the bottom, and we have a point of interest. We have foreground, which is the rocks in the water, middle ground, and background. So you've got a lot of interesting things going on. Same idea here, a little less interesting. And we've got the lighthouse, bottom thirds with the composition. Here I was playing with the zoom on it. It's not it actually goes to like 600, but it's not very good. So I'm experimenting here with foreground, middle ground, background. And this little froggy shows up, so I get some shots of him. Ribbit. Hey, I forgot I had these here. Isn't that cool? You can put a caption on this. So when you're out photographing, and Danielle actually got some really cool shots of the frog and textures, water. So what I did here was I took the camera and I held it just above the water. I mean, a little lower, and the camera would have got wet. And I click, underexposed it. You can tell it's dark. So I put the point of interest on the top third because I wanted the water to really play a pivotal role. Same thing here, bottom third. So there you have it. And textures again. Textures. I love textures. They're interesting. You can take any of these and blow them up. Make yourself some wall portraits, wall prints, textures, repeating textures. So foreground, middle ground, background. I mean, I got a lot to say about lighting and all that. You got to learn to see lighting. Lighting is probably one of the most important things, but we'll worry about that. Oh, I want to mention this to you guys before I close off, and I'm almost done. If you go to Westmount Photography and go to the blog on the right, you'll see Love of Photography. And I've got a page and a half of photography videos and tips on me sharing more of this information with you. All right. So that's it. That's all I got. And I hope you've enjoyed this particular podcast for December. See you all in 2021. Wish you all a happy new year, and do subscribe to the channel, or at least sign up for the studio newsletter. And most of all, put your comments. I'd like to hear your comments and or suggestions for any other studio podcasts you might have. All right. Thank you.